Welcome to the Tapestry of Life on CCP-TV, the educational channel of Community College of Philadelphia. I am Dr. Pascal Scoles, Professor of Behavioral Health and Human Services. Today's topic is Recovery High School Revisited. In July of 2011, CCP-TV introduced our viewers to the new Recovery High School, which advocates for the promotion, strengthening, and expansion of secondary and post-secondary programs designed for students and families committed to achieving success in both education and recovery. Today, we're going to talk with two students about their experience. To discuss this topic, I want to welcome back Rebecca Bonner, who was here in our first show, and also two students. One is a 9th grader and the other is a 10th grader. The first student is Che Lee, I got it right, didn't I? Yes, okay. And Brianna. Let me start out by saying we're really excited about this show in particular because, and I'm sure Rebecca will talk to this, it's one of the most exciting things that's happening in the recovery field, that we're trying to tap into this whole reservoir of young people who need support services. So in that sense, we're energized to hear your story, actually. But Rebecca, what do you, I don't know, how things going? Can you maybe bring us up to date about what the, because when we first met, you were just forming the school.
Right, we were getting ready to open that fall and admit our first students. We're now in our 2nd year, and it's the Bridgeway School. And we served about 11 students last year and had 3 graduates. We have 7 students this year, and again, we're going to have 3 graduates. You know, as you said, you know, we are supporting kids who are working a sober program, NA, AA, and we provide an environment that requires, supports, and honors sobriety. I think that's in a nutshell what we do.
Great. Well, who would like to say something and start and talk about this fabulous experience that you're having? Maybe, since your name I had the most difficulty with, Che Lee. Let's start with you. How did you get to the school, and kind of what brought you to even be involved in the Recovery High School?
Well, I mean, I was getting high and drunk for a few years, and I kind of got, I don't know, like I couldn't take it anymore. I tried stopping, but I never really went through with it. So I got sent into rehab, and from rehab, I got sent into an intensive outpatient. And then my counselor at my intensive outpatient is friends with Rebecca, and she had called him and asked him if there was any, you know, females or whatever in the group that were interested. So he asked me about it, and I was excited, and you know, ended up getting into the school. So. Yeah.
What when you say you were getting high? When did you start using?
How
old were you?
Well, I mean, I was drinking ever since I was a kid.
Like a kid being?
Like 10.
10. So you started drinking. That
9,
would be
10.
What? 4th grade? 5th
Yeah.
grade? 4th grade. So you picked up your drinking in the 4th grade.
Yeah, and then I was smoking weed for like 2.5, 3 years, and then I was doing pills for like 6 months.
Oh, what kind of pills were they?
Percocets and Xanax.
Oh, okay. Why did you start drinking when you were, I was just curious, was it just, does your family?
Yeah, well, my family drinks. I don't know, felt like the grown-up thing to do.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's pretty much what the culture says. It's the grown-up thing to do, is to drink, you know, and to do medications of some sort, or what we call actually controlled substances and drugs and things like that.
Yeah.
So you move along, and then you wind up being, I guess, overwhelmed by the use of it, and it gets you out of control.
Yeah.
And how out of control did it get? Did you wind up in rehab? But how did you get there? in order to get here?
I don't know. My dad kind of had enough of it. I was cutting class, skipping school. I was cursing out my teachers. You know, I didn't have like any friends. I don't know. I was just doing a lot of dumb stuff, and like, I don't know. I guess like all my nevers kind of came true. Like everything I said I would never do, like I ended up doing.
Wow. Does this sound familiar to you, Brianna?
Mm-hmm.
Well, tell us a little bit about it.
No, I mean, I started drinking around the same age.
In the 4th grade?
Yeah, like, well, the first time I got drunk, I was 7 years old, but I don't really count that because I don't remember it. But my family is all alcoholics and drug addicts, so that's all they would do. So growing up from a young age, that's all I wanted to be like them, and I wanted to do the things that they did. And so like around like 10th grade, when I was 10, I started getting in trouble a lot more, and I started smoking cigarettes, and then I started drinking, just like here and there, not like every single day. And then I started to realize that I wasn't, like nobody else was doing that, and then like the depression came in and the anger and everything like that, and I started to know more that my family wasn't like other people's families, so I kind of stayed away from all the people that I thought were normal, and hung out with the bad kids, and like people you don't take home to meet your mom and your dad, and that's the people I hung out with, and I started getting in a lot more trouble, and like she was saying, I started skipping school, and then like Rebecca knows, I just stopped going to school around like 7th grade, and I was drinking a lot, and by the time I was in 7th grade, I got hospitalized about 2 times for drinking too much, and I got alcohol poisoning almost every single time I drank. And like I smoked marijuana a lot, and but then I started noticing like that there are more drugs out there, which I didn't experience too much with drugs, but I definitely got into the huffing, computer dust and everything like that, and then that kind of made everything go downhill, and when I was in 8th grade, I got hospitalized again, and then sent to a mental institution, and I stayed there for 2 weeks, and that was kind of my first, like my parents and my one brother are in recovery, and so I knew about AA and I knew about NA and all that stuff, and I knew that there was a place to go, but I was in denial and I didn't want to be like my family, so I kept it up until I got into the mental institution, and then it started coming around, and I was going back to my high school, which I was surrounded by the kids that were still using and still drinking, and it was in my nature to be like those kids. I didn't want to be like the nerds or anything like that, so I for about 5 months I kept getting in trouble, and then I got sent back to the mental institution, and then my dad found out about Bridgeway, and and this was like I was serious about recovery, and I really did want to get clean. So last year I started around February.
I think January, right after winter break.
I started last year in January, and it's just like, I don't know, it's completely different from my school.
Why'd they send you to a psych facility, or a mental facility as you refer to it? I guess you went to a general psychiatric facility?
Yeah, like it was called Crozier Crisis, just 302.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was very violent, and
oh, okay.
not just like toward my family, but to myself, like always, like just kind of like I said, I was very depressed and angry, so I was like, I'm just taking myself out.
Oh, so they took the anger and depression, assuming suicide possibly.
Yeah, well, I would threaten it, and I did try like multiple times, but I don't know, I guess that was like the last resort where they were just like, she needs to get away.
Oh,
and
okay.
Pat, can I add something?
Sure.
It's a really common, and I'm sure you're aware of this, that mental illness and addiction go hand in hand.
Yeah, the comorbidity is clear.
Yes.
And you see it a lot in early adolescence because their emotions are developing and their addiction habits kind of, or developing, and they do get contaminated and coexist. So you can see where the frightening thought is the whole idea that an adolescent would talk about suicide.
And I think
And, that scares a lot of
oh
parents.
yeah, and I think it was a combination, Brian, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but a combination of the substance use and the mental health issues that were going on at the same time, and it just kind of got to a critical point for you.
Yeah, well, at a young age, like I said, before I even started really drinking a lot, I knew that I was different, and that kind of made me sad. And like my household was crazy, so I was brought up with anger. And don't get me wrong, there's love there. My parents love me, but I mean, I'm the youngest of 4 older brothers, so it was a very angry household. And so I was very angry, and I was very depressed at a very young age. And when I started drinking and using drugs, that I noticed that that it was just making these things more broad and like bold, and I knew it. Like I thought that they could cover up everything, but it ended up bringing my anger and my depression
worse.
more out. Yeah. And like the further I got into my alcoholism, the more that I would wake up and wish that I didn't, type of thing. And I would like, I don't know, I would just wish I would die every day, pretty much. And then my parents finally just like told me, I came home one morning, and my mom said, because I used to always come home and say that I hate this house so much, I hate you people, like da 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 da. So my mom just finally was like, all right, if you hate this house, then you can go. And
your parents were in recovery by that point too.
Yeah, and that definitely kicked off everything, because like I said, my older brothers could do whatever they wanted, and because my parents were still using. And then when I started getting more into drinking and using drugs, they got sober, and they were trying to tell me no. And of course, like, I'm a rebel. So I was like, no, I'm gonna do what I want. But yeah, it was very troubling, and I knew my parents cared about me so much that I feel like they kind of put some of the blame on them, and that's not true at all. You can probably relate to that. But my parents have been the greatest. I mean, they helped me. I don't think that they definitely did get me not into sobriety, but they helped me a lot. They kind of gave me like the pat on the back, like you're okay no matter what, and so that helped me a lot. And I'm like so grateful that they're in recovery.
So the whole household's in recovery now, it sounds like, right?
My mom and my dad and my older brother Jim are in recovery. I have my 2 other brothers that are living in my house they've been in recovery before, but they're currently not. My brother Joe is trying to get back in there, but yeah, I mean, everybody's experienced it, and it's not like there's no drugs or alcohol in my house anymore. It's a pretty stable household now, except for like the little tiffs, but that's fine.
Which is probably normal in every family. There's the little tips that go back and forth.
Yeah, but it's a very loving house now, and we get along
Very
and
good.
stuff like that.
From your perspective, it's a chicken and egg story I'm going to go with. Did the depression precipitate the addiction, or did the addiction precipitate the depression, or were they just there, both of them at the same time?
They were pretty much there at the same time.
Okay.
Because once I noticed that I was getting depressed and I wasn't normal, that's when I was like, I have to get out of myself. And I got something, and I found things that I thought was getting me out of myself, which was the alcohol and the bad behaviors, and just anything that could make me not focus on how I was different, and like how kids were getting good grades and they were doing good, and but I was like not, I guess. So I wanted to make sure, I guess, like it's different from like kids that aren't doing good. I feel like they want to better themselves, but I was like, I need a reputation, and I need to be bad, and I need to know that like I'm the bad kid in school, and that's kind of what I ran with. But yeah, the depression and the addiction came hand in hand. Once I realized that I was sad and I didn't like my life, I wanted to put something in it that would make me feel like feel anything that I wanted to feel, really. And it didn't do that at all. But yeah.
And if you don't mind me asking, what grade are you in now?
I'm in 10th grade.
10th grade. And how old are you?
I'm 16.
Oh, okay. So you're moving along
Yeah.
in the sense of your recovery, which is nice. When she had made a reference, you understand that, Rebecca. Do you mind sharing what she refers to?
You mean from a parent perspective?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was the impetus actually for the Bridgeway School, was my experience as a parent. I'm an educator as well, but when my daughter, who's now a junior in college, but when she was a freshman in high school, she developed an addiction to prescription medication and got pretty bad. Mm-hmm. Ended up in rehab, and when she was coming out of rehab in time to start her 10th grade year, and it was where, the question was where to send her, because her high school, and I think you guys will agree with this, it's not a slam against the schools, it's just reality. Her high school had been her pharmacy of choice. Mm-hmm. And, people, places, and things, and situations, and, the recommendation to us was that she attend a therapeutic boarding school, which would have sent her out of state. She was only 15 years old, out of state, and would have cost way more than we had.
And also would have stigmatized her.
Right, yes. And we thought we had this much time left with her that we wanted to keep her at home, but, and as an educator, I had heard about sober schools and thought there has to be one. Philadelphia is a huge city, there has to be one around here. There wasn't. The closest one at that time was in Boston. And so she did come out of rehab, she did go back to school, she predictably relapsed a couple of times. We know that 8 out of 10 kids who return to their prior high school relapse within the first 6 months, and she did. She did pull it together. Her junior and senior year were relatively uneventful, but she's a normally gregarious kid, and the only way she got through it was going to meetings, but also she had no social life at her school. Sure. And I thought this was a terrible thing, to have to watch her go through, and I didn't want other families to have to go through it. And so that was the start of the school. And I think what Bree was referring to is, I think, initially everybody looks to the parents. It must have been some issue, with the parents, or the parents are somehow to blame, and
the broken home.
That kind of thing. Yeah. And the thing that we know is it cuts across all kinds of family structures, all kinds of socioeconomic classes. It's a disease, and you've said, your parents, they were in recovery by the time you were dealing with this stuff, but they never made you pick up.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, and I think that's what you were.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people in the beginning, because when I was still using, I would blame it on my parents. Like, this is their fault, this is my brother's fault, why I'm like this. And as soon as I got in recovery, I've been forever grateful for who my parents are. You've met them, they're amazing people. Mm-hmm. And I love them so much. And I think it's right as soon as you do get sober, you're like, this is nobody's fault but mine. They never, did anything. They loved us, all my brothers, but they had their own problems. We all had our own problems, and we're not the let's talk this out type of family. We're leave me alone. And but now that we're all in recovery, I've seen who they really are, and I know it was never their fault why I'm the person I am today.
And I think that's one of the things that we stress at the school is personal accountability and honesty. I think are probably the two most important things that we really work on with the kids. Because if you're, I still meet adults who blame it on their parents. And if you're in that position, you're really not getting well. And we're all about people getting well.
Well, they often say that if you keep projecting it onto someone else, and you keep rationalizing it onto someone else, and you keep denying that you're a part of the problem, well, then I guess you'll never heal, as they say. You just won't.
And I know that she can vouch for, anybody that is in recovery or addiction, that they don't want to blame it on. They don't want to blame it on themselves. They want to think that they're not the problem and that everybody else is. And once they come to realize that, they did that to themselves, I feel like things do get a little bit easier. You're able to work on yourself a little bit more. And I would blame it on a rug if I could in my recovery.
Sure.
I didn't care. It just it wasn't me. It wasn't my fault. But the school really does do that. And I've been sober for a year and 4 months now, and I don't blame anything on anybody else, really. I know that everything is my own doing, and that's just sometimes I would love to blame it on everybody else, but I know that the reason why I started using drugs and drinking is not because of anybody else but myself. And I hear people saying like it's a genetic thing. I don't care about that, whether it's genetics or not. I mean, like, I have a lot of genetics, but I don't have like all the things that my family has, and I definitely don't blame it on that. It is a family disease, but it's your choice, like whether you want to.
There's a lot more choice in it than some
Yeah.
people want to give it, so to speak.
Definitely.
The disease or the disorder. Yeah, this is about the second or third show I've dealt with young people, and I'm amazed in youth that there's no animosity towards their parents. They still, whatever happened, they still kind of ultimately still love their parents. And a lot of addictions you hear in the adult model, they're always arguing and they're in conflict constantly. So it's a nice change in, I don't know, maybe philosophy of recovery, that if you get it early enough, there's still bridges that you could cross over, and not to say the bridge school, but there's still bridges that one could cross.
Yeah, well, and that is a really key part of it, because one thing that some people will recommend with young kids is get them out of Dodge, and send them away from home. And philosophically, our school believes that if there's any hope at all for the family to be able to work together, it is a family disease, and to recover and heal, that it's important for people to be together. And so sending a kid to boarding school, while it may be necessary under some circumstances, we think that it's ideal if the student can go to school in a supportive environment that's providing recovery supports, but then be able to live at home and be working on the issues so that the whole family can heal.
What's going to be interesting as time goes on, as these young ladies go to college and become educators themselves and return as models to help other young people who are in similar situations, would, I think, enhance this whole movement in a very, very positive way. It would be a nice thing to see, I think, over time. Chay, does any of this make her story, does it resonate, as they say, with you?
Yeah, I mean, what she was saying about her parents, I used to blame my mom all the time for me being an addict and an alcoholic, and I used to blame her because, a lot of stuff was going on with my mom at the time, and I would always say, like, you're the reason why I started using. But, like, it's not her fault. I had a choice, like you said about it's genetics, and it is, but you still have a choice, you know what I mean? And it was, I chose to pick up, I chose to relapse, I chose, everything basically. Nobody made me do it. Nobody can make you do anything. And so I get what she was saying there. Like, I don't blame my mom, it's not her fault.
In reality, if you didn't believe that you were part of the reason for where you wound up, you would never change.
Yeah.
You would never do anything about it. You would just be angry and depressed, and you'd blame it on forever until you killed yourself or something really, or you wound up in prison for 15 or 20 years. So the acceptance of the fact that you're a part of the solution as well as part of the problem is really one of the nice things that happens with young people in recovery. It takes, and I keep stressing that because some older people in recovery, it takes them a longer time to figure out that they're the problem because they've had more of a history of being there, I suspect.
Yeah.
I have to say, I love being at school every day with these guys, because there's such a, it's still a high school, and there's still, adolescent students there, and there's still drama from time to time. But, it should be, it's age appropriate. But they're joyful, they're kids in recovery. And other than that, you would just think you're looking at a normal group of kids, except that there's a lightness about them, and all the wonders that come from being in recovery. I get to see every day in these guys.
Yeah. Now, I've had this conversation with you before, but I want it just for the audience. I think it would be important. it's a regular licensed facility
Yes.
by the Department of Education.
Yes.
This isn't like a rehab center.
No, not at all.
You know, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, I don't want to say, oh, they're here because, but they actually get their degree. And if I'm not mistaken, they actually can get the degree from the high school sometimes.
Yes, it depends. And
Where they came from.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. We're accredited by the Pennsylvania Department of Education. We are a regular high school as opposed to a therapeutic environment. Having said that, though, we do have recovery supports, and maybe these guys
We're
can
gonna
talk about
that
that.
in a few minutes, I'm sure.
But you know, the structure is a little bit different. We start the school day a little bit later than most traditional schools are to better reflect where adolescents are. Yes, thumbs up on that, right? We go from 9 till 4, and 4 days a week. The kids do have a 50-minute group, and we start the day with a check-in where we actually read something from the literature, and there's a morning meditation, and that goes about 20 minutes. And then every day there's a checkout so that kids can articulate where they're going after school. Are they going to treatment? Do they have a family therapy session? Are they going to a job? What meeting are they going to? That kind of thing. But other than that, you look at the schedule for the day, it's, you know.
And it's math and
English and
you know,
history and
physics
yeah,
and
exactly.
all the
Yep.
regular. And
Yep,
the teachers
absolutely.
are all certified.
Yes,
I know
teachers
that.
are all
But I wanted
certified.
to just
Yes.
bring that up
Thank
as
you.
a
Thank
thought.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great thought. Here's the need for that has been articulated, but let me ask: when you were in your other school, what were the problems that led you to say this is a better place for me to be? I mean, I know you said you sat next to the person who used to deal drugs to you, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody in the class knew it, but you knew it, and so there always was that threat of relapse or use constantly.
Yeah, I definitely think like the couple of main points that were a problem in my school were not only the kids, but I'm naturally drawn to negative people, and like what people would say, bad kids or whatever. So I find them out of the huge amount of people in my school. I would find these kids, and I would just be drawn to them. But not only was it like at the Bridgeway School, it's a smaller environment, so every kid gets the right amount of attention. And when I was placed in the school with a lot of kids, someone wasn't wondering what I was doing or like looking out for me. So it was just like I could do whatever I wanted when I wanted. And
Because it was a fairly large school.
it was a huge school, so like they weren't just going to focus on me. There's so many other kids, and so I did whatever I wanted when I wanted. And
If I can add to that too, I think what you're describing is very common, and because one of the arguments that comes up often is, well, we'll take a kid from one school and put them in another school, but if a kid is really serious about recovery and they're working on a sober program and they go to a regular high school, they're not getting the same level of recovery support. And I can't take credit for this, but Andy Finch out of Vanderbilt, who's done a lot of research on recovery schools, talks about the coffee phenomenon. And I tested it the last time I was at a conference. And I walked out of my hotel in Houston and I needed my Starbucks. And within a minute and a half, I knew where the Starbucks was because I saw people coming with their cups and was able to ask, where'd you get that? And it took me a minute and a half. And I think it's the same thing, that if the availability is there, you would find it. If you were in a school that's not a recovery school, you would find the people who were using, the people who had the substances, you would find them.
yeah, like all you have to do is look out the window and see the 50 kids on the corner smoking cigarettes, and you're like, that's where I gotta go.
Yeah.
And it definitely was difficult for me because I grew up with these kids and I knew them from a very young age. I was transferred to an outpatient rehab, like Taylor was saying, when I was 11 years old. So I was introduced to the program when I was 11 years old, and from elementary school to high school, it's been a constant battle between like people, places, and things, and it was just so hard for me to get out of my normal routine of going and hanging out with my friends and going on the corner and smoking cigarettes with them and then going off and doing whatever we wanted. It was so hard to get out of that natural routine Because like I was saying earlier, that I get attracted to these negative people. So, and they're there. They're my friends. They live in my community. So they're always in my life. And to be stuck in the school with them when I'm trying to get sober, it's so hard because, I mean, it's out of my comfort zone to go see somebody and be like, do you want to be my friend? Like, I don't want to do that. So, like, I go to the normal people that I'm always with and I always have been with and be like, let's hang out. And I just fell right back into the same pattern so many times. So being placed in the Bridgeway School, it's all new experiences.
And with other kids who are doing the same thing.
Yeah, they're good people. And it was funny when I was talking about the outpatient rehab that I got sent to when I was 11. When I started at the Bridgeway School, all of the kids that were at my outpatient rehab were in the Bridgeway School. So that was actually an advantage for me. I didn't come into school not knowing everybody. I knew everybody.
Sure.
Which also, I mean, was a beautiful thing because we all got in trouble when we were in the outpatient rehab. And to see them, they were the graduates, to see them doing good in their lives, it was really just an amazing thing to recover with them and be in their lives. And we still keep in contact. It's not just like kind of a high and by thing. But it really does work out it gives you that experience in life of being able to lean into the discomfort and meeting new sober kids and to just try to learn comfortability in like these new environments. And it's definitely worked for, I mean, we're very welcoming. Like, we welcomed her right in, and any new student we have, it's not like we're mean to them, like the new kid. Like, we're very nice, and we have the 50-minute groups, and it's kind of hard for us to be distant from each other. I mean, we're a community. We get along for the most part, and I don't know. We grow, and we try to learn how to be in a healthy relationship with each other. And that's not how it is in public school. I mean, you have your cliques, like the nerds, the popular kids, the jocks, the mess-ups, and it's not like that in our school.
Not to mention school, but you were in a suburban school, so and you were in an inner city school, Philadelphia. In particular. And you're in 9th grade now.
Yeah.
So when she said they welcomed you, how long have you been at the school?
Since January.
Okay, so you're like a newbie.
Yeah.
Kind of. You're like new. And what was it like from where you were and making the transition?
The transition was, I don't know, it was weird because at my old school, I was, what she said about the cliques, like you had the jocks, the junkies, the popular kids, the cheerleaders, just typical high school. And then I was right in with, the junkies. I was with the nerds. I hung out with the cheerleaders. I was kind of with everybody. But so I knew a whole bunch of people. And, I mean, obviously I didn't know everybody because that school was huge. But, I could, like she said, kind of do whatever I wanted. It didn't, it was a huge school. The focus wasn't, like you said, wasn't on me. Like, you know what I mean? But it was weird. Like, going from having, like, all those people, you know what I mean, like, being cool with all those people and going into, like, a school with, like, 6 kids. I don't know. It was just weird. And also, like, I couldn't do whatever I wanted anymore, you know what I mean? If I wanted a cigarette, I can't just go, sneak out of class and go into, like, the stairwell and smoke a cigarette.
There's
like
no place to hide.
Exactly. Exactly. So, yeah, but it's good. I mean, it's a lot better than my old school because, if I need help with something, all I have to do is raise my hand and ask the teacher, and they'll help me. And if I still don't get it, they'll continue to help me until I understand it. Like, it wasn't like that at my old school or the school I was at before that when I was in middle school. So, it's the transition. It was weird at first. I didn't really feel. I don't want to say I didn't feel comfortable, but it was just very. It
is kind of uncomfortable.
It's different. It's different in the sense that,
Exactly. It was
different.
changed, but no, they did welcome me right away, and I don't know, I like it a lot. So.
And that's another thing for like the educational, for me, and even coming into to the school, my grades were terrible. I mean, I was stuck in a 6th grade level because I stopped learning, and then I didn't go to school in 7th and 8th grade. So when I came into the Bridgeway School, I was so lost on what to do academically, and because it's a small environment, they're there to help you. And you don't have to be embarrassed. Like when you're in a public school or in a bigger school, you have 30, 40 kids in your class, and you don't want to be humiliated by raising your hand and asking for help. And at our school, that's all they want to do is help you, and it's so freeing. Like you can just ask for help whenever you need it, and the teachers are right there helping you, and that's an incredible thing, because I was always so scared to ask for help in my other schools. And not only was I scared, I didn't want to ask for help because I didn't want to do the work. And and now that, I have the attention that I need to help me, I'm all caught up and I'm good to go. And that happened in a year. And only because the teachers that I have were there by my side helping me as much as I can, and as much as they could. And it's been an incredible thing. I need that one-on-one attention, and I don't feel embarrassed or anything like that. I know that it's okay for me to ask for help. And there's not so many kids judging me, or not that they were, but we need help. Stuff like that.
Typically, I think it's great that you're thanking your teachers, because they do. They do. That is really, they're motivated to help you guys. But I also think that what we see is when kids first come in, and this, I think you would agree with this description, Brianna had a little bit of trouble for the first few weeks. She wasn't sure about, how academically things were going to go. But after about 3 weeks, she really did start to say, I think I can do this. And what we see with kids is that when they get well, they get really well. And Brianna just took off like a rocket. When she started working on her academics, she was a sponge. And we see this with a lot of kids at Bridgeway.
You're catching them at an age where everything's developing, intellectually, emotionally, and if you could tap it, they run.
Right. And
they
they're
run
getting,
right
and they're,
into
and
it
they're
if you
getting,
could
they're
tap
getting
it.
well. And
Yes.
kids in recovery, they get really well. So
fairly
so
quickly, as
fairly
long as
quickly.
there's a network of support around it.
Yeah.
It's somewhat. It's a kind of a sad thought that kids in regular high schools can't get these kinds of services. I understand there's 35 in a class, and you have very small classes, but it is what education was to be, was exactly what you're doing, and that is where students feel comfortable in talking to the teacher and getting support and not feeling ashamed. But for certain types of students, they need a smaller structured place, and in order to grow. Remember, if they continued on their old in their old space, what would you have? You'd have all kinds of serious problems.
Yeah,
from
and that's
theft
one
and
of
robbery, to
exactly
everything you can imagine. So in a sense, you're making them and helping them become much more productive and much more engaged in the environment. So it's actually a wonderful thing, actually.
When I was in elementary school and middle school, and they started, I don't mean my schools were good schools.
Yes.
They did what every other kid, and I was different from many other kids, and they thought I wasn't learning this, so they placed me in special ed classes and all this stuff, and all the other kids that were in my special ed classes, or my or whatever the other classes are called, they were fine with that. They needed that attention, but I was embarrassed. I was like, I can't have my friends see me in this special ed class. I gotta get out of
Because you
here.
weren't a special ed student.
Yeah,
and that's in the traditional special ed sense.
Yeah.
And what my teachers didn't realize, I guess they just thought that I couldn't do the work and that it was so challenging for me, which it was, but I think it was more they didn't know that I was really hurting, and I didn't know how to ask for help. So they were just all right, just ship her off. And I'm not saying that that's their fault. It was my fault for not asking for help, but they just don't know what a lot of teachers actually do know nowadays. They do know that it's not just because we're dumb or whatever. It's because we need help.
So, Chayla, I wanted to get you a couple words in here because we got obviously a tremendous talker over here. Brianna, I was wondering if you wanted to add something to it or just nod appropriately, or what would you like to do?
I don't. Yeah, I mean, I guess what she said
Okay.
at my old school. I mean, in any school really, besides Berkeley. It's embarrassing to ask for help. You seem dumb. And like ever since I was through 1st grade till 8th grade, like all the kids used to call me dumb. And like even my friends would, and they would be joking around, like, you know, and like it was my fault because I would laugh and, you know, act like it didn't hurt my feelings, but, you know, it did. And they were, like I said, they weren't trying to, you know, bully me or anything, but it was because like reading is hard for me, you know, math is hard for me, English is hard for me, like, and it's, you know, I would ask for help and all the kids would get so annoyed because I would always hold the class up, so I stopped asking for help, you know, and then I didn't learn anything from like 4th, 5th grade through like till now, really, and yeah, so it's really nice that like I can raise my hand and ask for help 30 times during one class and like not have somebody, you know, say that I'm dumb or that I'm stupid or not feel like I'm holding up the whole class, you know what I mean? So I don't know, yeah, I do really thank the teachers for being there.
Well, maybe we can move into what's your day like in this new high school, the Recovery High School? I mean, what, from your perspective, I mean, I know Rebecca has it structured in a certain way, but I'm wondering, how does your day go? Kind of? You start out at 9 with classes, and
Well, like Rebecca was saying, we start out with a morning check-in to just, we read the meditation.
now are these meditations? I'm familiar with meditations from the big book when they talk about meditations. Sometimes the meditations can be from the Tibetan book of this or the
Well, no,
Buddhist.
it's an AA structured
Oh, okay. All right.
book, and it's actually, I forget what it's called, but it's for
one
teens.
yeah.
It
Yeah.
says
Okay.
for teens
All
on
right.
it, and that's just something we'll read it and then we'll say how we related to it, and then we'll just talk about our night. If there was any big changes, or just like usually there's not.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah, so we'll just talk about what we did.
Yeah,
And,
so there's kind of like a reading and a reflective moment, so that if things didn't go well the night before,
yeah.
you could start your day by discussing it and
Yeah, we
starting
just-
better.
We
so to
start our
speak.
day with recovery,
Right.
and sometimes
Okay.
the passages are completely insane and we don't know what they're talking about, or they really relate. And most of the kids, we do relate a lot to it. It's like thought of the day, meditation for the day, and prayer for the day. And then we just go right into class. It's a very laid-back, relaxing day. I mean, we don't, like, we'll take fun field trips sometimes, and we do a lot of stuff. And it's not just like you're sitting in this building all day. And everything we do, it's learning it's learning something, whether it be academically or learning how to live. But the school days are just like any other school days. We go to class and we sit there and we learn. And it's just like it's very laid back. It's not like rushing around anywhere. We get breaks throughout the day. We'll get a 10-minute break, a 15-minute break, a 5-minute break, I think.
Well, there's
we
a
have.
10-minute in the morning and a 15 in the afternoon.
Yeah, which that is good. Instead of just like completely exhausting our brains, we have that little like sit-down time. We
Are
eat
there
lunch
meetings
together.
mixed in there later in the day, or
We have group.
Yeah,
group?
we have the group. We have the 50-minute group.
It's not a meeting, though.
It's not.
No,
a meeting. It's
it's
more
not
like
a meeting.
like a, I guess, group counseling. Or
Yeah.
something like
Yeah.
that. And would you can bring up a topic that is particularly bothering you, or you want to get some clarity on? Or?
That's what the check-in also helps us for. Sometimes our groups are based on if someone had a problem, then check-in that our counselor, or do we call it?
Yeah, she's,
Alright.
yeah.
Our counselor, I don't know if it's therapist.
We call her
or-
Beth.
Yeah. We talk, if that person had a troubling time last night or the night before, we'll talk about that in group. And if they didn't, we kind of just like roll it off of like what the first person has to say, really. And if nothing's going wrong, then we'll talk about like funny stuff, or most likely we get into like things that are real, just we get into, or sometimes the group is like kind of a laid back group, and we kind of just like goof around and talk about friends, which is rare. But it's like this 15-minute time to just talk and to get away from like this, not get away from the school day, but kind of just like relax and be ourselves and talk about things.
Do you mind sharing what some topics might be, not that are particularly?
I don't know. It's hard to say because
Yeah.
there's so many of them. They just get
Okay.
bound. And
I mean,
a
do
lot
they go
of,
into areas like of intimacy or relationships? I mean,
Yeah.
the traditional
Yeah.
kind of counseling.
I mean, it's
topics.
any topic.
But you
Yeah.
can bring up
I-
anything,
Yeah.
and it has a kind of a guided discussion, I guess,
Yes.
Yeah.
with each of you.
And
Okay.
I think Bree's right. It does. It's everything from those issues to, but also things like refusal skills and
Yeah.
you know, triggers
everything.
and
Triggers.
It's
Yeah.
everything
Family
that you
stuff.
possibly
Yeah.
imagine.
Family things.
yeah.
And which is also, I think, a good thing is that a lot of us have ADD and ADHD, so it bounces all around to many different
Okay.
topics at the same
Sure.
time.
Keeps moving around.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's very good. It helps us, I think. Well,
Now,
I
you're
know.
you're a freshman, so
Yeah.
how was that coming into this? I guess it's kind of unique and different. Now, you've been there a while as a sophomore, so
A year.
yes,
Yeah.
it's a good amount of time.
So what?
So what
Does it ask
what was
me?
it like for you to just to enter into this kind of new way of looking at it, the high school for you? I mean,
It was. I don't really know how to say this. It was nice, I guess. Like I said, it was kind of awkward at first, but now I'm really grateful because like I don't have to. I don't know. I get like really bad anxiety, especially when I'm around a lot of people. You know, and it is weird because like it's my freshman year. You know what I mean? Like, I was only at my old school for like 4 months. You know what I mean? But no, it was you know, it's weird because like all my friends are like in high school and like public school, Catholic school, and you know they always ask me like well, what school do you go to? And I'm just like I always tell them I go to like a disciplinary school or something
oh, you do?
because I don't want to put my personal business out there. But yeah, but it's I don't know. It's a nice transition, I guess. I'd rather be here,
Than somewhere.
than some other kind of school.
Well, that probably is an issue eventually of stigma, as we say, and eventually somehow has to get some resolution, I guess, through the school and how it deals with the other schools, because it is obviously a sensitive area. Like she's not at West Philly
Right.
or
Right.
or wherever,
Right.
and so because in my day they used to say, oh, you're at Boone, which was the disciplinary school in public schools, and you say, oh, they're from Boone. It was almost like it had a stigma attached to it, and that's, I guess, what you're trying to avoid.
Right.
Actually,
Right.
avoid it. Now, when they graduate, they'll get the diploma, hopefully, from.
They get some students get a dual diploma.
Yes.
It depends on what the relationship has been with the school district.
I won't be getting that.
You won't be.
No, you won't. No.
You won't be. But it really the other thing that I've been putting out there is that there is stigma, and
Yeah.
won't deny that there is, but college admissions officers
Love it.
love a good essay on recovery.
Yes.
And that
They love it here at the college too. Actually.
they love it at most colleges, but I think there's a concern, from students and parents especially, that this is going to be an issue. But I'm trying to tell them that what we're seeing is not that at all.
No, I think good life stories with successes to them, and surely the stories that are being told in the Tapestry shows, and in particular in this one, they're wonderful stories of encouragement and transformation, and they are things that people look to when they look at admissions. They say, here's a person who struggled, made it through a certain negative part of their life, and seemed to be on the right path, and they're just wonderful stories.
Yeah.
Storytelling, when they talk about it in the department sometimes. And I think they are wonderful things. So you're to be commended for that. I mean, and I can see where it is awkward, but eventually, we have to be really proud of our recovery and talk it from the highest mountain, so to speak, because that's the only way the stigma will ever go, is they start to see people who are successful and they're in recovery. I mean, that's the whole idea of the walk. You know, the recovery walk, 11, 12,000 people a year get together and make a walk. You know, and we have a program here, 600 people, 350 of them in recovery, getting college degrees.
Yeah. I mean, this, the jobs that I've been at, they'll ask, like any application, they'll ask what school I go to, and I'll put the Bridgeway school, and then they'll ask me again, and like, you could tell like it doesn't really click in their head. They're like, recovery for what? And I'm like, I just say like it's a long story. I do. I'm like, I go to this school in Manayunk, it's a long story. And they're like, oh, okay. And they just, they don't care. But if someone really wants to get into what I have to say, then they, like my boss now, he, like we had like a deep conversation, and he was talking about how he's not himself, but he has family that's in active addiction and stuff like that, and he told me like that he's proud of me and stuff like that. So like I haven't had, I mean, everybody that I tell about the school, they're like, that's amazing. And like some of them, when I share my message, if I'm speaking at a meeting, they'll be like, why didn't they have that when I was little?
Well, that's
And,
true, but
yeah.
again, they didn't. But yes.
Yeah, so I mean, I've never gotten any, I mean, it's from like old friends that I don't really care about, to be like, that's dumb. And I'm like, no, that's because you're...
Well, it's only dumb to people who continue to use.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying,
like dumber
Yeah.
to them in a way.
They're like, oh, that seems boring. I'm like, no, okay. Like, have fun.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, because you represent now everything that they really need to move towards, and if they don't, their life will become increasingly more negative. It's not going to get positive if you continue to use drugs, as we sitting here all know. But they don't want to face that reality.
yeah. Like, looking back on my old friends, like, I have 3 friends that are in jail right now. And then the rest of, like, the 5 of them, I only went with, like, 9 friends. The rest of the 5 of them are doing harder drugs. And, like, cheekbones popping out, disgusting, like, probation, everything like that. In and out of house, living on the streets, and it's just like disgusting to look at. And like I know that that Bridgeway would help them and everything like that. But I mean, I can't. I have to completely distance myself away from those people.
Sure, you do.
Yeah. No matter how much I would love to help them, I know that if I were to get involved with their life again, I would go downhill. And and I can just pray for them, but it really is sad, and I'm so. I mean, I know if it wasn't for Bridgeway, I wouldn't be sober.
Yeah.
Well, that's nice. It's a nice
Yeah.
testimony to Bridgeway.
Yeah.
There's no way I would, because I tried to get sober I was sober for 5 months in my old school, and I just went downhill. And it wasn't even like I was like a good spiritual sober. I was still getting in trouble. I just didn't use drugs or alcohol to get in trouble.
And I think it's a combination. I mean, it's a lot of hard work on your part too, and I don't think that should be, ignored. But I think just the fact that kids are in a supportive environment for the entire school day, most of them then go to intensive outpatient or outpatient, and then they go to a meeting at night.
Okay.
And so it's
We cover most of their day.
yes,
Now we have to cover their weekends
yeah.
in the sense of
Yes.
potential problems. But how is the end of your day? How does it go normally? Does it, I mean, here you get out of school around 3-ish, I guess 4-ish,
About
whatever.
3,
Like 3:45.
Yeah.
3:45. Then in your case and in your case, what do you do it for? Just out of curiosity.
I go to work.
You go to work, okay. And you work in what kind of a place?
Fast food.
Fast food?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not really.
So
I
you're
don't
like
know.
flipping burgers and stuff?
No, I
I'm
don't.
joking, because I
It's-
like that one, flipping burgers.
It's like Chipotle. I don't know, Mexican.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
you have a job in which you're earning a certain amount of, money so that you can have some spending money.
Yeah, and saving.
Kind of.
And saving money.
And saving money.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. You already have savings down at
I know.
it's unbelievable. And then you do that for a few hours, then do you go to a meeting at night?
I do. I just got a couple more days off, so I do go to meeting. I go to meetings on the weekends, and I go to meetings now. I'll be going to meetings Wednesday and Thursday. But like I was telling you about my boss, I told him that I needed to make more meetings, and he was like completely
No
open to
problem.
it.
Now, who do you if you don't mind me asking this. So now your weekends here, I mean, who do you socialize with? Is it the people from the school, or where do you meet people in the situation that you're in? Because one of the problems is when you meet people, they're like probably at your age involved in all the wrong things in the sense of what you're trying to do with your life. So how do you meet a new person or a different person that you become friendly with?
Well, I had, like I was saying earlier, like I was let off easy with my parents being in recovery and my older brother, that he introduced me to a lot of his friends. So now I have like a bunch of younger friends, not my age young, but I do have younger friends, and I mean it's pretty much, it is uncomfortable because, like I was saying, trying to build new relationships,
Sure.
It's very uncomfortable to meet new people. But I mean, I have plenty of friends
Okay.
that I
so
hang out
your
with,
life
yeah.
is fairly full, and
Yeah.
okay. How about you, Troy?
Yeah, I mean, I go to outpatient. I have friends there. And then the days I don't have outpatient, I'll meet up with my older sister, who's also in recovery.
Okay.
And we'll go to a meeting, yeah. And just like her, me and my older sister, you know, my older sister introduced me to like a lot of people. So, and when I go to my mom's every other weekend, and she's in recovery too. So, you know, everybody I know at my mom's, she lives in Levittown, you know, they're all in recovery. So, you know, it's a very safe environment.
Mm-hmm. Well, they often say, at least people in the adult area, when they get in recovery for the first 2 years, you almost have to stay insulated in order to develop the right profile for yourself. And that somewhere between the second and the fifth year, you kind of can live among the drinkers, as they say, or the drug takers, and not be tempted.
Yeah.
So, so you are, I guess, doing what one would be doing.
And I think like the meetings a lot, like if a person's really trying to get sober and they go to meetings, like it's not like you come into the program and people are just sitting there like, oh, get away from me. Like from all of us, even your program and all three of our programs, they're very like open arms, like how are you, keep coming back.
Yeah.
So if a person's going to meetings, they're bound to, I mean, there's new beginners packets with numbers on it, and if a person's really trying to get sober, they'll meet new people, and the program,
Good.
you know, helps them.
Well, let me just say, I really enjoyed the conversation today. It was really helpful and informative, and it actually does do what Rebecca said it was supposed to do 2 years ago. So I'm hoping that it continues to grow and expand, and I'm hoping you have all the success in the world, because you're two very bright and articulate young ladies. And I mean, I hope you go on and all your wishes come true, and all your dreams come true. And maybe come back in a few years and we'll see how you're doing. Okay. Well, that's all the time we have for the show today. I want to thank my guests for being with me today, and I want to thank you for watching. You have been watching the Tapestry of Life on CCP-TV, the educational channel of Community College of Philadelphia. I am Dr. Pascal Scoles, Professor of Behavioral Health and Human Services. See you next time.